In 2004, I was on top of the world. I had a lucrative contract for photography at a popular all-inclusive chain, where I handled about 50 or so destination weddings every month with a team that was highly motivated, highly dedicated, a team I could depend on to absolutely deliver. In 2005, it all came crashing down as the resort took photography in-house and then decreed that photographers like myself, who had served them well over many years, were suddenly persona non grata, not allowed on their properties to shoot weddings, even when brides wanted those same photographers. And so it was that photographers started to beat each other up on price in what appeared like a limbo competition race to the bottom. Taking its cue from this, some other hotels then decided to introduce what I could only describe as a silly tax. And what do I mean by silly tax? What it was that these resorts then said that if a bride wanted to bring what was now being called an outside photographer onto the property, they had to pay a fee. And the irony of it was that this fee, in many instances, was 2.5 times higher than the price for their cheapest wedding offering. So I referred to it as a silly tax because I considered that what the resorts were saying was, well, bride, you must really be silly to pay for the photography from an outside photographer rather than taking ours on. Or it could have been saying, worse to brides, you must be even more silly to accept this infringement of your rights on what is arguably the most important day of your adult life. And so it was, I came to find myself swimming in a sea of red, unable to pay my bills, unable to pay my mortgage, almost unable to put food on the table. And I thought for a while that the only way out might be off the top of a building that was so tall that I wouldn't survive the jump. Coming out of this, en route to that building, that tall building, I found myself in a number of what I consider to be false starts with trying a couple of different businesses. And suddenly along the way, I came up with this idea that I called the Saint Lucia Photo Tour. And the idea behind it was, I'm going to make my photography very Kirk-centric. I'm going to take visitors out. I'm going to teach them how to use their digital cameras, how to get off of auto, how to discover what all the buttons on that camera can do. And I started to promote it online exclusively because I swore that never again would I allow a hotel to dictate my financial future. Well, the photo tour struck a chord with visitors on TripAdvisor, and in very short order, it shot to being the #1 thing to do in St. Lucia. And it also led to my first TripAdvisor Certificate of Excellence. As a result of this Certificate of Excellence, I got invited down to the community of Fongelib to help that community develop its product to a similar stance, a similar level of excellence. When I first of all, I should share with folks, for anyone who might not know about Fongelib. Fongelib is at the base of Gopiton. And the residents at Fongelib are reputed to be the descendants of the freedom fighters from the days of slavery who decided hundreds of years ago that slavery wasn't for them, ran away and made that area their stronghold. So just giving you a little bit of a feel for that community down there. When I first entered Fongelib, I was absolutely blown away by the possibilities, by what was there, and also by the fact that the community wasn't even scratching the surface of the possibilities. And I started to interact with the community. I also found that folks were not very much into stepping ahead, into recognizing the value that was coming out, that was possible in the community. And I also found, I went into one community meeting, and one of the persons at that meeting was quite vocal in his recognition that the community was not getting a fair share of the remuneration of the money that was coming off the mountain, and as a consequence of visitors going out to experience the hike. And as I started to interact with community residents, other people started to share with me similar stories, very quietly, very privately, because they didn't want to rock the boat, that they weren't happy with the status quo, but that in some instances they were afraid, what will happen with our jobs, etc. And I went from this position of only seeing the business interests into a caring for the community, into a wanting to help them to step up and recognize the value and the potential and the ways that they could achieve it and that we could achieve it together. And so it was, I then developed a further interaction with the community, and I realized coming out of all of this that while the community lacked the self-confidence and the capacity to develop, they certainly were strong in the desire to do more. And I felt that it was important for me to work with them to take them from this position of whatever will be, we'll accept the status quo, to a position of yes, we can do it. And more so, yes, we can do it, because let's just remember, Fonjalib, the Valley of the Free People, those descendants of the runaway slaves. And what I found in the community as well was that there's a drive in them, there's a passion in them, there's a protective aggression in them in a very beautiful way. And one of the things that dawned on me coming out of this, the importance of why it is that one needs that caring entrepreneur to interact with communities, is really when we look at the fact that today, tourism is the driver of our economy. And let me just see if I can get this to take me where I want to go. And I bring this slide up, and it's not very clear here, but what I will do is I will point out some of what's on it. This slide, it's always important to be able to back stuff up, back up your hypotheses with numbers, with empirical evidence. So here's the empirical evidence. The World Travel and Tourism Council, their economic impact report, their 2018 economic impact report for St. Lucia, which is actually reporting on figures for 2017, show, and on the left-hand side it actually shows, that St. Lucia's, the contribution to GDP in St. Lucia from tourism is $200 million US. On the right-hand side, it shows that the contribution of indirectly of tourism to St. Lucia's GDP is 3 times that amount, at $600 million US. Now, those figures may sound interesting, may sound large, but let us really break them down into what they actually translate to. And here, I will show that, again, working on the left-hand side, that $200 million US works out to be in 540 million EC dollars, approximately $500 million EC dollars. So we've got tourism directly generating into our GDP 540 million EC dollars. And the figures for St. Lucia's population at the end of 2017 is approximately 180,000 people. This translates to a total of just over $3,000 per annum per person in St. Lucia, or $252 a month, or $8.40 every day for each man, woman, and child in St. Lucia. That's the direct impact of tourism on our GDP. And if we go to now the indirect impact, which is 3 times this amount, if I take my $8.40 and multiply by 3, it gives me $25.20. And what I want to ask every one of you here today is, each one of us in St. Lucia earns $25.20 per day as a result of tourism. That's the indirect contribution from tourism. I want you to think of how you are going to spend your $25.20, taking into account that you've got a mortgage to pay, you've got kids to send to school, you've got to put money aside for their education, their higher education, you've got to put aside money for health care. You also have to pay your vehicle loan, you've got to put gas in the vehicle, and you haven't even put food on the table as yet. So I want you to think long and hard about how are you going to spend the $25.20 that comes to each and every one of us if we just look at tourism GDP on a daily basis. And it is coming out of that it has really brought home to me, and I would like it to bring home to you as well, the importance of developing not just community-based tourism, but more importantly, sustainable community-based tourism. And the reason why it is imperative that we have caring entrepreneurs to assist these communities. And if we think of it from a business standpoint, it really makes sense. Because one of the things that struck me when I went into Fongelib is that it was evident that money was being made in the community, but the community, the residents, are disgruntled. And if you have an entrepreneur who comes in and is caring and works with the community and shows them, the community will embrace that entrepreneur, and they will be the biggest protector of that entrepreneur because they will be doing it together. Now, what's the road towards fixing this? And I'm happy to share with folks here today and to share with the world that UNDP, the United Nations Development Program, through the Global Environmental Fund, the Small Grants Program, came to the assistance of this community as soon as they reached out, as soon as the registered executive reached out. They provided a very small planning grant that allowed the community to conduct a feasibility study, baseline studies, to establish where exactly they're at, what the possibilities are, and what are the best next steps. Coming out of this, the community is poised to now get a full grant, which will allow for capacity building within the community, which will allow for the establishment of legal frameworks that will guide the community towards being successful. And I can also share with folks that this is not a sprint, it is a marathon. I can also share with folks here today that part of what we've been doing in the community is really sensitizing, first of all, the executive committee to recognize their potential. And part of that, helping them to recognize their potential, on my part, as the entrepreneur who has gone in and is working with the community, has been to take members of the executive out with me when I go out, for instance, to a St. Lucia Hotel and Tourism Association workshop. When I go out, for instance, to a St. Lucia Tourism Authority presentation on the state of the economy, where business is coming from. And I share in this slide, for instance, this is the executive's vice president, young lady called Cheryl. And Cheryl has been coming out with me. I've been taking her out to the workshops. Here she is at a workshop which is put on by one of the top agencies out of New York that has helped a hotel in Cabo San Lucas grow their revenue by $10 million a year. They were here sharing with Hotel and Tourism Association members how it is that we can also do the same thing by promoting our businesses directly online. And this is just Cheryl. There's another member of the executive who have taken out with me on my photo tour to experience it as a guest, to see the way that I interact with clients on the tour. And every time we come back from these sessions, we sit with the executive where members must discuss what it is they experience, what they learned, and how that learning can be used for the greater development of the community. I'm happy to share that the executive is now so inspired that one young lady has recently reached out to Monroe College, and she is going to pursue a certification in hospitality services. There's another young lady who has just graduated as a nurse. And this young lady, her name is Chriselle, she has said that she wants to be the community's nurse, to help take care of the health and well-being of those in the community, those who may not be able to go out to the health center for their diabetes medication, to have their blood pressure tested. And she also said, and Kirk, it makes sense, then I can be the first responder should a visitor on the mountain suffer an emergency. This is the level of input and output that's now coming. There's yet another member who has just signed up to do another tourism program over with Monroe. And everyone knows photography is my baby. So I have taken one of the hikers, guy named Larry, and I have now been training him in both photography and in videography, because I've said to him that he must become both the custodian and the curator of all the stuff that can be developed in the community pictorially. Create this, put it out, put it on YouTube, start to share with the world. Take ownership of it, because this truly belongs to you. And the way that I see this is that this capacity building within the community is what will lead visitors to spend even more. Because as we share with visitors the stories that this is how the community is developing, this is how it's becoming it's working towards self-sufficiency, that resonates with visitors. And we know that for a fact from the feedback we have gotten from circulars, from questionnaires that have been put out. So the idea for us down at Fongelib is about developing this whole project of community-based tourism into an international benchmark of sustainable community-based tourism within a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And we want to develop it so that it becomes a model that can be used by other communities locally and also by other places in the world. And as part of the continued development within the communities, I have said to the executive that once we've completed this journey on the full grant in terms of developing capacity, we must now go on to see how things are done in other islands, in other places. So we've got an idea in place to take them across to Barbados, to experience Harrison's Cave, to walk into Cave Shepherd and see all of the branding that says Barbados, for us to go into Oistins and see how they run their Fish Friday night and compare it to Gros Islet. And it is by expanding the horizons of these small communities and having them come back and recognize what they can do back home. That's how we are going to grow it. That's how we are going to strengthen the economics of this country, by putting money into the communities, and from the communities it will spread beyond to the broader St. Lucia to increase this $25.20, which we know ain't sufficient. So, caring entrepreneurship, caring at the community level, must always be about more than just the dollars and cents. Communities must be given a reason to participate. And that reason has to go, like I said, so much more beyond the dollars and cents. That reason has to be monumentally uplifting. That reason has to speak to a deeper place of existence, a deeper place of understanding. And I can say that having spent the last 4 years working with FONGELIB, it is absolutely clear to me that community-based tourism here in St. Lucia is unlikely to achieve its fullest potential without that caring entrepreneur, and also without that deep-seated reason from within the community. The reason must be monumentally uplifting. It must seek to create a better world for the community first, for the visitor, for the caring entrepreneur, and for the world at large. A reason that recognizes that wealth is so much more than just money. A reason that recognizes that communities such as FONGELIB are truly some of the happiest places on earth, and happiness is truly what wealth is. Ironically, the pain that led me to discovering FONGELIB actually turned out to be in the catalyst that made me appreciate just how high the odds are stacked against communities for them to be successful at community-based tourism, and their absolute need for caring entrepreneurs. And while I do not profess to have all of the answers, what I can share with you folks is that I am 500%, if not more, committed to seeing this project through the distance. We are going to come out on top. We are going to create a product that is going to make St. Lucia proud, that is going to position us in a special place in this world. And what I would like to invite folks to do is, if this resonates with you, I would like to invite you to follow us on the journey, get involved. What can you do in your communities as well? Follow us. Keep checking out this project, FONGELIB. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Kirk. I'll take about 4 hands. 1, 2, 3. So, one more.
Thank you very much, Kirk, for a very innovating and captivating presentation. You said we need to follow you. So do you have a Facebook page or some such social media presence that we can follow you on? Because I would love to follow you. Thank you.
It is coming. What I can say to you is, right now, any and everyone can reach out to me. I am dead easy to find. My email is kirk@kirkelliott.com. And I love the question, and I also love the fact that it's putting pressure back on some of the folks of FONGELIB who I'm happy to have here with us today. And if you don't mind, I'd like them to stand. We've got the president of the FONGELIB Development Committee, and we've got the PRO. The president is Francis Alexander, and the PRO is Mrs. Charmaine Charles. Thank you. And I have intentionally refrained from creating it. Sometimes I get a little frustrated and they know me already. I will stay up until 3 in the morning to get something done because it has to get in. But we are now at the point where I must empower them by letting them take the actions. And I must be there to support them, to prod them, to say, guys, why isn't this done as yet? Guys, you're letting us down. So again, folks, you see it. Right, thank you.
Kirk, I want to give you a little tap on your back, a little pat on your back.
Thank you.
Because I am passionate about social impact. And I love your model because it's a very simple model. It doesn't need any set of innovation, yet it is innovative. And I remember many years ago, and especially because of your journey and that you've honestly shared with us, and I'm sure there are other layers to that journey, you know, but I remember once, many, many years ago, a very impressive entrepreneur, global entrepreneur saying, you do not need money. All you need is a good idea. And many times we forego the good idea thinking that we need startup capital. And I started from a personal perspective, a social enterprise on a shoestring budget 18 years ago in Trinidad and Tobago. Today, while it may not be financially a high capacity, what it has done, which is what I've wanted it to do, is to create global impact. What I have seen globally is my ability to be having a footprint on 5 continents globally. I have been able to be recognized by some of the most influential global organizations. I have been able to access capacity building from governments internationally. So I'm patting you on the back to say that what you've done by inspiring others will continue to have ripple effects. And I am taking this moment to say I am personally proud of you, and I'm pleased to meet you and pleased to acquaint with you starting today.
I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. If I can just share with folks, I'll just take 2 moments to share this. Folks, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I've got a friend who said to me, Kirk, when you're ready to launch, just let me know. I will call Sir Richard and have him come climb the mountain for publicity. And this is a friend who has Sir Richard in his WhatsApp, who has direct contact with him. I can also share with you folks, everyone's familiar with the Black Panther movies, the movie. Okay, there's another movie that came out called Venom. It's in the Marvel series. There's an actress from Venom who was here. I took her down to Fongelib. She's from New Orleans. She was blown away. On the weekend, she called me and she said, Kirk, what's happening? Because she's supposed to come down and help. And she said, Kirk, I haven't heard from you. And I'm in the process of setting up an NGO to take this further because we are looking for 501c3 recognition out of the United States, which will allow us to take in funds, folks to contribute, and for those funds to be tax deductible. She has said, Kirk, just let me know when you're ready. I will come down. I will work with the community. And folks, there's even more stuff that I don't want to blow the bubble on it as yet, right? But I mean, like when it happens, wow. She came down and she met with the community. She met with the exec. And one of the things that she said was, I love the fact that there are so many women in this, and it's about female empowerment. Yeah. So just wanted to share that a little bit.
Good morning again.
Morning.
I must confess I am enjoying this forum. I'm trying to restrain, but I am intellectually stimulated and I cannot hold back. I want to join with the lady over here in congratulating you. And I must say what you're doing resonates with me. And I'm happy to see you here because you're one of those as well who I've followed in terms of your passion, in terms of preserving history and our patrimony. In terms of the caring community, I must say I feel this with Jeff, and I want to say thank you to Mr. Romulus. And I can feel that whole atmosphere, that family, that caring that I have not felt for quite a while with industrialization. And being involved in the project at our school, at Palate Combined School. I must say, although everybody has their project, but everybody's willing, there's that family. And I'm so happy that you have that project there and they funded you. And I'm just praying that the project goes forward and blows up. And I love that it's all about history, and history, my mainstream history, geography. So kudos to you. And I'm putting it out there that Plainview will love to be part of it. I'm the liaison teacher. We'd love to be part of it, to broaden the trends, horizon and all of that. As an educator, you're doing a wonderful job.